Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay ke semua faham lab ni? So sebenarnya minggu ini sepatutnya kita hanya share tentang basic taste and odor perception ya for your first lab. So this is actually the slide prepared and used by Madam Nadia while she is lecturing, guest lecturing Universitas Brawijaya for the last Saturday. So I think the slide is quite detailed, and I hope you can understand what Madam Nadia tried to share. What is sensory evaluation? You must understand the definition, the description of sensory evaluation is actually a scientific discipline used to evoke, measure, analyze, and interpret reaction to those characteristics of foods and other material as they perceived by the sense of sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. Okay, so most of us maybe think that sensory evaluation is not really critical as other physical and chemical analysis that use a lot of high-end instrument. Okay, however, you must understand based on the definition. The sensory evaluation itself is actually a scientific discipline, meaning that even though we use human to give us data, right? Give us data based on what they perceive in terms of appearance, in terms of taste, odor, and overall perception. They give us data. So by having that data, we analyze statistically, and we use that data to actually help us make decision in food production or in a food company. Okay, so it's mean that even though we use human, you must remember if the value is not analyzed or is not obtained properly, when your panelists cannot give their true opinion, you are actually will not get the true or valid data. So your sensory evaluation might be useless. Okay, you can settle down, you can settle your sensory evaluation part, but if the data is not valid, then we can simply say that your sensory evaluation test is useless. Okay, that's why in sensory evaluation we have to avoid biasness. We need to run in sensory room which equipped with a few specialties like must have divider between panel to avoid from discussion, and then make sure no order from the outside or any order that might interrupt the sensory evaluation session. And then your sample, if you have 3 samples, 3 of it should not shows differences too much. Okay, because all these things might affect the perception from your panel. Okay, so the first lab is actually related to the basic taste and odor perception. So unfortunately, you are not able to experience the experiment of sensory evaluation this semester. Is okay. Hopefully, you by having this session, you can have overall experience or overall view about the sensory evaluation lab. So basically, the basic taste will include sweetness, saltiness, sourness, bitterness, and the last or the newest is actually umami taste. Umami taste, which derive from the taste of monosodium glutamate. Okay, you can taste umami in tomato, baby tomato. That one got umami taste. While aftertaste is actually something when you eat food product and then after you eat, you swallow the food, you still can taste something that might stay in your mouth. That one is aftertaste. For example, we consume what we call that, the Japanese food, that one. Hold on. I cannot remember. I cannot recall. Something that give aftertaste after you swallow the product. Right? So that one is actually not classified under the basic taste. It's just actually one of the situation. Okay, some of the product might give aftertaste after we swallow the product. Okay, so this one actually covered in your lecture, how we can taste the product. So for basic taste, actually student will handle, yeah. Half of you will handle the sample in the preparation area, and then you change, and then half of you will be the panelists. So while we are handling sensory evaluation tests, what are the important things that you need to prepare is actually of course, your sensory form. So this is an example of sensory form used to test the basic taste, yeah, from the panelists. So uh, it should have instruction over there. In front of you, there are 5 coded sample. So coded sample must be 3 coded sample. Okay, 5, 3, 6, for example, 7, 8, 2, 1, 4, 9, for example. Okay, so all sample must be coded by using 3 digit. And then you ask the panel to test the sample, and they need to jot down what they expect the product is. Okay, for example, usually we will prepare solution. Okay, solution, sweet solution that use sugar, and then we use citric acid solution at certain level, not too high. Okay, 0 point something usually. That one is the indicator for the sourness. And then we use caffeine usually, the solution, caffeine solution as the sample for bitterness. And then we use, of course, salt solution, we dilute it as a sample for salty, saltiness. And umami, usually we use monosodium glutamate solution. All right, so from here, the panel should write down over here what are the tastes that they can detect. Okay, let's say the first coded sample, let's say is 392. Only those who are in the preparation room know what is the solution referred to. Okay, for example, the first solution should be salt solution. So the panelist should write here saltiness or salty taste. Okay, so from here, we collect the data from one whole class. Let's say we have 25 students. How many of them get the correct answer? How many of them having problem? Maybe in their test, but because they cannot get correct answer for the test. So actually it's depend on the individual, yeah, because it is physiology, human body. Okay, different people will have different strength on their sensory senses. Okay, so usually panelists who get correct for the first basic test experiment, they have an opportunity to be choose um, for train panelist session. Okay, if in this basic test they unable to give the correct answer, how come they are going to be your train panelists, right? And the second basic is actually in terms of odor perception. Yeah, so olfactory receptor is the system that plays an important role in human in order for us to be able to sniff the odor from the food. So like the previous one, usually under this odor perception test, we use cotton bud which dip into a solution of something that give flavor. Okay, usually we use a flavoring agent, okay, synthetic flavoring agent, and then we dip the cotton bud and then place the cotton bud into a small glass jar, and then you must to cap it properly to actually to avoid from the odor from evaporate to the air. Okay, so let's say here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So for each panelist, they are provided with 10 samples, okay, which label by using 3 coded number, different 3 coded number. Okay, why you use code number? We use coded number because we don't want the panelists to bias, to get some idea about the sample. Okay, you give just number, and then you ask the panelists to open up the glass jar and then sniff 3 short sniff. If you look at here, okay, kenapa tak boleh banyak kali? Because our receptor will get tired, fatigue when you force to sniff too much. Okay, if they cannot, if the panelists cannot identify what is the odor referred to, they can stop for a while before continue to repeat the sniffing process. Okay, so once they can get what is the odor, they can write down here. For example, the first odor, it's referring to the pandan odor. So they stated here pandan odor. And then the last one referring to the orange odor. So they need to jot down here. It's actually referring to the orange odor. So that's how we ask the panelists to give their opinion towards the sample that provided to them. Okay, so from one whole class, we can collect the data. How much from the entire, how many percent from the entire class get all correct? Not many people can get all correct order. Okay, like I said previously, because it is human sense human body differently between each other. Okay, so actually that's the only that we want to cover. However, since this slide including another sensory test, so I hope after this 14 weeks of lecture, you can actually classify the sensory tests into 3 different tests. We have discrimination or different tests, and then acceptance or preference or affective tests, and then descriptive. So the first one and the third one only required a trained panelist. Okay, if your panelist is untrained panelist, they are only eligible to sit for preference, acceptance, or affective tests. Do you get me? Okay, for example, if you go to Giant or any hypermarkets, there are companies that give sample to the consumer. They give a small cup of milk, for example. They give a cup of instant noodle, for example. That one is actually referring to the number 2. However, that one, they are not giving us the sensory form. So why we use untrained panelists for the preference or acceptance of affective? Because we want to get feedback from the real situation. Okay, the consumer. So consumer is not trained panelist. Okay, we will cover this one later. All right, and then discrimination or different tests. Discriminative or different tests usually referring to the sensory analysis where we want to see the difference in terms of sweetness, different in terms of sourness, different in terms of texture of sample. So only trained panelists can give the best opinion towards this, okay? Because they not having problem in detecting what kind of taste, what kind of basic odor. So they pass all this basic tests, okay? And then the description is the highest level. I could say this one is not very easy to handle because of course the first one you need trained panelists, and then the trained panelists must undergo few sessions of training, okay? Because in descriptive we can just give food sample to the panelists, and they are able to describe the product itself. For example, you give them cheese, yeah, and then under descriptive test, they already know the sample is actually cheese. So what else we want from them? We want them to describe. Please describe this cheese. Okay, so your cheese having slightly yellowish color. And then in terms of taste, it has acidic taste. However, a little bit of aftertaste. In terms of texture, it is soft, but a little bit, well, they give very descriptive their evaluation. Yeah? Only trained panelists can do this. Okay, so under this slide, since Madam Nadia already included the one of preference or acceptance test, which is ranking test. So I just explain to you what is ranking test. Is actually one of preference or acceptance or affective test that can be chosen, okay, in order to know which one is the most preferred. Okay, let's say you have 4 samples. Between 4 samples, which one is most preferred by the panelists? Okay, it is a quick and simple test depending on the objective of the study. If you ask the panelists to choose which one you prefer, so they will rank which one is 1, which one is 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Maybe the question asks about, in terms of sweetness, which one rank the sample based on your preference. Dari segi manis dia, mana yang paling disuka. Okay. So this is how the sensory form look like. Okay. So usually ranking test is used to determine the presence of significant difference between sample. The difference between all possible rank total pair are calculated and compared with the statistical chart from statistical chart 6. Which referring to the least significant difference, and statistical chart 8 Friedman test. So this Friedman test is used to analyze whether there is significant difference or not between sample by comparing t-test value with the value from statistical chart 8. The least significant difference test will be used to determine which sample is different from one another. Okay, so this is usually, if you look at here, we have 4 samples altogether, and all the samples must be labeled as 3 coded number. So in front of you, there are 4 coded samples. Rinse your mouth with plain water before and after testing each sample. And then you are asked to test the sample from the left. And arrange the coded sample from the least preferred, which is 1, and the most preferred, which is 4. Okay, so after testing the sample, the panelists will give rank, which one they prefer. Okay. So this is the example. All right. So in this example, the company want to produce a new less sugar cake. Okay, they want to reduce the sugar inside the cake formulation. So we have 20, 40, 60, and 80 grams. Altogether, they have 4 formulations. So they use 20 panelists, okay, 20 panelists with, by using ranking test. And then the question asks to justify your answer by using 5% of significant difference. Okay. Let's say this is the result from this sensory. If you look at here, I give you example, yeah. So sample A coded as 201, referring to 20 grams of sugar in the formulation. Okay, so 20 gram, 40 gram, 60 gram, 80 gram. The panelists should not know about this. They won't see any information like this on their sensory form. So this actually is the form or the data that collected by the sensory evaluation team who handle the sensory evaluation session. It might be the company, it might be your FPD group. Okay, it shouldn't be your panelists. They should not know what is A. They only see 3 coded number on their sensory evaluation form. Okay, so this is how you tabulated the data before you analyze. So first of all, if you look at here, the first panelist rank 40 grams of sugar or 654 sample as the first or the most preferred, and 496 sample is the least preferred. Okay, so that's how we read the information here. And then you need to sum up. Okay, sum up all the rank here. You get the result. And then what you have to do, use the test statistic formula like this. You just follow the formula. So how to calculate the test statistic, which is T, okay? It's referring to the 12 divided by number of panelists, we have 20. Number of treatment is referring to number of sample, we have 4. And then times with number of treatment, which is 4 plus 1. This is the formula. We just need to refer to them, okay? So 4 plus 1, 5. And then times with sum of the square of the rank, sum of each treatment. So the first treatment, you already sum up here, right? 51. So 51 squared plus 48, 40, 61. 48, 40, 61. All this treatment must be squared. All right. And then what else? Minus 3 times number of panelists 20 times number of treatment plus 1. So 4 plus 1 will be 5. So you calculate all this data and you get 6.78. Okay, what else? What is the next step? So this is the test statistic or T value. So now you have to refer to statistical chart to find the value of chi-squared, okay, where degree of freedom is 3 and probability is 0.05. So, okay, this is the table, the chart. So degree of freedom is 3, and then the probability is 0.05. From the chart, we got 7.81. Okay, so 7.81 is the value obtained from the statistical chart. So we need to compare. The T value just now we calculated 6.78. And then the value from the chart is 7.81. If this is the guideline, if the T value more than critical value from the chart, we can say there is significant difference between sample. Okay, now we look at here, the T value here will be 6.78, which is less, it is not more. It is less than the chart value, which is 7.81. So if the T value higher than the chart value, there is a significant difference. But if the T value is less than critical value, so there is no significant difference. Okay, so what is the conclusion here? Even though, okay, if you look at here, we have 4 formulations of cake. The first formulation used only 20 grams of sugar, followed by 40 grams of sugar, 60 grams, and 80 grams of sugar. So if the question asks you from the rank analysis, from the rank sensory analysis, is there any difference between sample? So the answer will be no significant difference, even though from our naked eyes or from the calculation, simple calculation, we can see the difference, right? We can see the difference 20, 40, 60, and 80. However, when we analyze scientifically, statistically, there is no significantly different. So, how would say? How would you say right now to your boss? You can say to your boss, okay, boss, instead of using 80 gram of sugar, why not we just reduce to 20 gram of sugar so that we can reduce much cost? And then your boss asks, is there any difference? If the consumer can feel the difference, then our sale might be dropped. And your answer will be, there is no significant difference. Okay? You get me or not? I hope you understand what I try to share to you. Thank you.